Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started. I'm sure others will be joining us, grabbing their coffee, coming on in. I wanted to just introduce myself. I'm Allison Caravan. I'm the Senior Director of Annual Giving and Advancement Relations. I'm delighted that you are all here with us today. For those of you who are joining us virtually, I'll be monitoring the chat. So if you have any technical difficulties or questions, feel free to put them in the chat and I can help to facilitate. But I am pleased to have Valerie Como, who's the Assistant Director of Undergraduate Academic Advising in the Office of Academic Services, and Melody Smith, who's an Academic Advisor as well in the Office of Academic Services, with us here this morning. So thank you. I'll turn it over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. We're thrilled to be able to spend some time with you and tell you a little bit about how we support the student experience here at Bentley. An overview of what we're going to be talking about over the next little bit. First, we want to introduce you to the academic advising function, who we are, what we do, how we help students navigate their academics here at Bentley. We're going to talk a little bit about the curriculum that our students are completing over their time with us and developmental expectations that occur year by year throughout a student's experience. We're going to talk about academic support services, so resources on campus to help a student if they happen to find themselves with some difficulty in a particular course, how you might be able to best support your students as they navigate their academic experience. And then we want to provide time for questions and answers. We are happy to field any questions that you might have while we have this time together today. So we want to begin by talking about our academic advising model. All students at Bentley are assigned an academic advisor in our office, and that is their assigned advisor throughout their time at Bentley. For our transfer students who join us, their transfer seminar instructor, which is an advisor in our office, would be their assigned advisor throughout their Bentley experience. For other students on campus who join us as first-year students, that tends to be more of an alphabetical split. What I would say is that although a student has an assigned advisor, if they happen to make a connection with a different advisor in the office, they are more than welcome to continue working with that advisor throughout their meetings and conversations. So the student has the choice. They can either consistently meet with their assigned advisor, or again, if they make a connection with a different advisor, continue that relationship. In general, there are very few instances where a student would be required to meet with us, but we are a resource for them to utilize as little or as much as they would like. And we'll talk more in a couple of minutes about how students can connect with us. In addition to the professional advisor that is assigned to each student, first-year students in this semester are taking a Falcon Discovery Seminar. That's FDS 100. It's a 3-credit course that goes the extent of the semester. And in that class, in addition to the faculty instructor, there's a peer leader that works closely with that class. And the peer leader is a highly trained student who's been at Bentley for probably 3 or 4 years. And they're an amazing resource for students, particularly in their first term, as they get to kind of get settled in, learn how things operate, how to be successful, where to go for certain questions. And so we really encourage first semester, first year students who are taking FDS 100 to also utilize their peer leader as a resource. And as you can imagine, in addition to their assigned advisor in our office, we have a plethora of faculty and staff who are resources for students in a variety of ways throughout their time. Those might happen through formal connections in terms of a class experience or an interaction, or might be more casual situations that arise where a student is connected with someone. The benefit, I think, of Bentley's size, we are a relatively small campus, is that it's quite easy for students to get to know many of the faculty and staff members on campus. And so we really encourage them to tap into those resources, ask questions, connect with faculty outside of class, go to those office hours, talk about what they're looking to do in addition to any questions they have about a class, and to continue those relationships throughout their experience. So now we're going to talk a little bit about some key academic advising resources that are available for students. So on the left column, we've got probably the 3 most common ways that students might connect with us and in types of scenarios where that outreach and that type of connection might be most helpful. So as you can imagine, email, of course, is a route for students. Either they can email their assigned advisor, or we have a general email account that they can reach out to. Email tends to be best for really basic information, straightforward questions. We ask students to allow a business day for a response, sometimes a little bit longer during busier periods of the semester, for example, the first week of the semester, or during registration periods in November and in April. But email would be best for really simple and straightforward questions. Sometimes what happens is a question that seems like it might be simple and straightforward actually is more complicated or would benefit from a conversation with a student. And in those instances, we would invite the student to come into the office to talk further about their initial question. Drop-ins are held weekdays from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. in our office. These are intended to be shorter conversations, 10 to 15 minutes. They're typically staffed by our peer advisors, who are highly trained students who are there to address questions without an appointment necessary. So this is helpful if a student is perhaps in between classes, they think of a question, oh, I wonder what, if one of the courses I'm taking this semester can be done pass fail. They may come by drop-ins during that time. We see students on a first come, first serve basis. And again, these are a great avenue if a student has a question they just thought of, something that's time sensitive and can be adequately addressed in that 10 to 15 minute window. But again, no appointment needed, weekdays 11 to 3. And then appointments, they allow for more extended conversation. So these are scheduled in advance through the Workday system, which is our student portal. This allows a student to connect with an advisor for more in-depth conversations, to talk about their major and or minor selection, to do some long-range planning, to talk through kind of their experience so far. So again, this could be an appointment that the student schedules with their assigned advisor, or if there's a different advisor that maybe has availability that better aligns with the students, then they might meet with a different advisor in that context. So again, up to 30 minutes enables more in-depth conversations, but does require some pre-planning to get that scheduled. So in addition to kind of connecting with our office in those manners, we also have some resources that are key for students to connect with on a regular basis, or just more static resources. So one of which is our advising brief newsletter. We publish this bi-weekly in the fall and spring semesters. We have a copy of the most recent issue on the table out front. And what we're trying to do here is communicate some key reminders, key deadlines, promote some programs and events that we're offering that might be helpful for students, remind them how to review and interpret their degree works audit, which is an important resource to make sure that they're on track with their degree requirements. We archive the prior issues on our website, so they're all available there. And again, this is emailed to all students every other week, typically on a Wednesday. We also offer a series of programs and events throughout the semester, again, to provide information to students at times that might be particularly helpful for them. So pop-up advising would represent opportunities where, instead of a student coming in for drop-ins, we're heading out to other areas of campus, either to connect with students in spaces where they might be, or outside of typical business hours. Pop-up advising is also intended for pretty quick questions, and we typically offer a series of pop-up events as we near registration periods. So with registration for spring courses coming up in November, we will have a variety of pop-up events in the next couple of weeks to, again, answer questions for students as they pull together their plans for the spring. Degree Works Workshop, we have one of those coming up on Tuesday for students who are new to the university this fall. This is helping students understand that audit that I had mentioned, that is an important tool for them to be comfortable with and know how to interpret. And this is, again, intended to help them better understand what DegreeWorks is saying, address any questions that they have. And then this past Wednesday, we hosted our annual academic programs fair. This is open to all students, and it's set up like a college fair. So we had faculty and staff from all academic departments, as well as study abroad, career development center, the graduate school. And it became a really convenient way for students to ask a variety of questions from a variety of different departments, all in one stop. So kind of like one-stop shopping. We typically host this event in the latter part of October each year. And again, it's open to all students. So for students who have not yet decided on their programs of study, it's a great way for them to get more information to help inform that decision. And even for students who have already decided what their major might be, this is a great opportunity for them to maybe ask some questions about how to best utilize the elective in their major, or if they're thinking about a minor, to learn more about that option. In addition to that, we have other programs throughout the year, again, depending on where we are and kind of what the timeline is. We do a series of events in the spring to assist students who are going abroad in the next academic year to do some long-range planning to help ensure that that semester abroad fits into their studies as smoothly as possible, and so some other things like that. We promote these events through the advising brief newsletter, via email, on our website. So we definitely encourage students to take advantage of these events if we're offering something that might be particularly beneficial for them. The academic catalog is posted on the university website. One of the key things we're trying to remind students is that the academic catalog that they should be consulting connects to their initial semester of enrollment at Bentley. So if a student enrolls at Bentley in fall 2020, they would be following the 2020 to 2021 academic catalog. Because there are some elements that vary by year in terms of curriculum requirements or policies that they would want to be aware of. But that's a great resource for students oftentimes when they have an initial question about something, or to see what policies and guidelines govern whatever they're looking to do. And of course, we are a resource to help students understand and interpret the details that they're finding in the catalog. And then of course, we have some social media resources that we encourage students to follow so that they can stay in touch with us and learn more about various, again, deadlines, reminders, events that we're offering that might be helpful. The next two slides, basically what we're outlining is an overview of curriculum requirements. So this is very high level, very general. This is for undeclared major. But this version here would be applicable to students who enrolled at Bentley prior to this fall. And so there's a series of core classes that are completed. In this case, they're labeled as general education classes or general business core classes. And that's the focus of much of a student's coursework in their first 2 years while they determine what they want to study for a major and or minor. Majors are comprised of 8 to 10 classes. Some students will start their major in sophomore year, provided that they meet the prerequisite for a major class. This is pretty common in spring of sophomore year. But major courses in particular are done oftentimes in junior and senior year. As you can see here, there's a mix of electives that students can complete. Electives provide more flexibility, in particular if a student is looking to do a minor or study abroad. That flexibility tends to be quite helpful for those types of programs. And there's a few focus requirements that students need to complete, which they will cover while they're taking other courses for some of those other categories. And then for students who enroll this fall, they're taking essentially the same content, just packaged in a different way. So their core classes would be Foundations for Success, Context and Perspectives, Business Dynamics, and Business Environment. So again, covering some key information that we want all students to have. And this would be the focus of their first couple of years at Bentley. Majors here are comprised of 8 to 11 courses. And again, students might start their majors in sophomore year if they meet the prerequisite for a major course, but in particular, they're going to be focused on their major courses in junior and senior year. A variety of electives here. In this case, it's a combination of arts and science electives and unrestricted electives, again, providing that same flexibility for students. And in this case, they've got just 1 or 2 intensive requirements. I'm going to turn it over to Mel.
Perfect. Okay, so now that we've kind of talked a little bit about how our office can help support students and an overview of curriculum, now we actually want to kind of break down each year that your student is going to be here and kind of what will be maybe happening or what they'll be pondering about and thinking about in each year. So their first year is really just about transition and acclimation. So thinking about their transition to Bentley, what does every day look like? What do Bentley classes look like? What does living on campus maybe look like? They're of course developing interpersonal and group skills inside and outside the classroom, study skills and time management, as well as writing skills. And then they are starting to maybe browse and get a little bit involved in campus involvement, figuring out what maybe interests them. Is there a new club or organization that they want to try? They're becoming well-rounded college students. They're being able to articulate their experiences maybe more clearly. And they're starting to meet professors and professional staff and maybe start to understand what making and building relationships with faculty and staff look like. Sophomore year is all about exploration and identity. So really in sophomore year, as you can see, there's kind of 2 halves. One is career goals. So are they thinking and finalizing maybe their what major and minors they might want? Are they starting to think about possible internships for future summers? And maybe they're networking with either professors in the field that they are looking to go into, or maybe juniors and seniors who have already maybe had some internship opportunities, or even alumni who have also graduated with degrees that they are looking to attain. And then with interests, they're managing relationships with people they live with, their friends, maybe groups in their classes. They're thinking about studying abroad, as many of our students typically study abroad their junior year. They're still getting involved with campus involvement. Maybe in sophomore year, they're getting more involved, thinking about potentially a leadership position in those involvements. And they're engaging with faculty and professionals, maybe on a deeper level, and going to those faculty members for maybe more advice and a mentorship. Junior year is about purpose and articulation. So as you can see, we kind of have 4 different ways that junior year can kind of spawn off of. So they're thinking of their educational purpose, right? At this point, they are in their major classes. So really diving into the coursework and focusing on getting all of the knowledge that they can while they're here. They might be having international experiences. Like I said, their junior year is really the most popular for study abroad. There's vocational coherence. And then of course, graduate school exploration, because now they might be debating, do I want to go right into a career once I graduate? Or am I thinking that more education and that grad school would be the next best decision? Finally, senior year. So backpack to briefcase. Senior year is definitely all about finalizing all of their degree requirements so they can finish their degree and walk across the stage in May. But during that senior year, while they're finalizing maybe some of their courses and soaking in all the senior events that happen on campus, they're also thinking about next steps. So at this point, they should have finalized, is grad school the next step, or is finding a career? So at this point, they might be really collaborating with professionals, professors, faculty, networking even more, having lots of interviews in between classes, and again, making sure that they are finishing their time at Bentley in the way that they want to. So one of the things that we also wanted to go over was academic support for your student while they are here at Bentley. So as you can see, we have a long list of academic learning centers. I won't go through every single one because we would be here for maybe another half hour, but all of these are listed on our website. Different learning centers have different hours, different locations, but students should be using all of these. And then in terms of academic services in our department, we also have some additional support that we can provide for students. So we do have disability services, which is held within academic services. So students looking for accommodations or in need of accommodations should reach out to disability services and connect with them. We also have an interim grade report. So this process is actually happening right now where faculty are submitting progress reports for students. And we then are following up with students just to check in if they need additional support, connect them to the learning centers that are listed on the screen, and just seeing again how we can ensure their success at Bentley. We also have a tutoring program. So we have peer tutors who again help support students with academics, ensuring their success in classes. When it comes to tutoring, there are 3 different levels that we ask students to kind of complete before they submit a tutoring request form. So whenever a student might be having a little bit of difficulty in a class, we always, the first question we ask them is, have you gone to the professor's office hours? Have you talked to the professor after class? Have you connected with them in some way? Because that faculty member is going to be the most knowledgeable on how that student is doing in class and what the class content is. If they've connected with the professor, we then suggest that they go to the appropriate learning center. For example, if it is an accounting class, they would go to the LEAF, which helps with accounting. If still connecting with the professor and going to the learning center, they are still in need of that additional support, they can then fill out the tutor request form. They have to get that basically signed by either a professor or their academic advisor, since they hopefully would be in contact with us too about additional support. And then we would be able to submit that tutor request form and they would begin that process. Again, if your student is ever having any difficulty, please encourage them to connect with us, as we can, again, help them or redirect them to additional services if needed. So when it comes to helping your student, what really we want to focus on is challenge and support, which then equals success. So when we talk about challenge, we talk about challenging your student to explore options, whether that is, again, with majors or minors, or again, even just exploring options in terms of student involvement. And we also would love for you all to challenge them to try something new. College is a great time for them to explore and maybe make a little mistake and then redirect themselves. So encouraging them to try something new means that they might actually be finding something that they didn't think they would enjoy, but they actually end up loving. Supporting them means asking them questions. Maybe not just how you're doing, but maybe ask them, what did you learn in class this past week? Or tell me something new about a project you're working on. Asking them more detailed questions so that you can actually get a better sense of how they are doing on campus. And then also supporting them in discovering their Bentley path. Many students will always compare themselves to their peers. I think it's a natural human instinct, but we want to make sure that we're supporting students to find their own path, and what maybe a family member or a friend or sibling has done does not need to be what's best for that student. And then of course, by challenging and supporting them, you are then ensuring success. So you get to watch them succeed, which means watching them be happy, healthy, and wise. And now, I think we still have plenty of time, so we would love to turn it over to anyone in the room or joining us virtually in case anyone has any questions or things that Val and myself can answer. Yes.
Hi, I would like to find out how long does it take between the scheduling an appointment with the advisor and actually getting it?
Yeah, yep. So I'll repeat the question so that people virtually can hear as well. So the question was, how long does it take between scheduling an appointment and actually having that appointment? I would say that sometimes that can be a couple of weeks. So typically at the start of the semester, we do not hold appointments for the first 2 weeks because we are doing drop-ins so that we can talk with students faster, really, and actually get a lot more students in our office versus if we were just having 30-minute appointments. So we don't typically start appointments until a couple weeks into the semester. But during those first 2 weeks of the semester, students are booking appointments for when the appointments start. So sometimes it does get us, like I said, I would say a couple of weeks, 2 weeks maybe, might be the max between when a student's making an appointment and when their appointment would actually occur. That's why we also suggest using email and visiting our peer advisors for drop-ins.
The other thing that will sometimes happen, and I encourage students to do this, is if it's something that maybe we've been talking about and they definitely want to follow up with me and they don't see that I have an appointment available, to send me an email. And then what I try to do is leave time open, like the beginning of my day, end of my day, just to squeeze in more time sensitive or more complicated discussions so that we can continue that conversation. And I think students by and large are pretty good with that in terms of if they have a question and if they feel like maybe going to a drop-in isn't the best way to talk it through, to reach out to their assigned advisor and see if we might be able to squeeze them in at some point.
Okay.
In the back?
Because Bentley offers so many opportunities for students to have double majors and everything else, it seems like there's often quite a few courses that you need to pull together in order to achieve those majors. And I'm curious, just sort of through the eyes of a sophomore, and just the challenge of getting into some of the classes, like once this path is mapped, the challenge of getting into those classes, there's a bit of breaking that, and just how can students navigate that so they make sure that they can actually achieve the majors that they're trying to achieve.
Well, I think one of the key things is some lingo that we use, not that it's official, is as a must-take course versus if a course doesn't have to be taken in a particular term. So when we craft a long-range plan with students to identify how they might fit in, like that second major or minor and study abroad and all of that, one of the things we're trying to do is identify where do they have flexibility in which courses they're taking in each semester, and where do they not have any flexibility. So a key factor would be if a course in a major is a prereq for a subsequent course, they of course would want to take that class earlier. And so that would be a situation where the class might be a must take for a particular semester, where there are other situations where the course could be swapped for something else and taken at a future time. Course offerings for each semester are determined by each academic department. And then if it is a course that's a must-take course for a given term, and if a student's not able to enroll in it, perhaps it fills up or something to that effect, there is typically a wait list for each class. And so a student can identify themselves, put themselves on the wait list for the course, and then the academic department that offers that course can review that information, as space becomes available, to see if they can offer the spot to a student who might have the major. Above and beyond that, I would say the student remaining in contact with us to maybe identify if they're not clear, is this a must take for the following semester, or can I do it later, right? Sometimes that may not be obvious, or just to kind of talk about an alternative way to approach it. But certainly the more academic programs that are layered in, the more complicated registration tends to get, because the other factor that comes into play is it typically results in looking for courses that can do more than one thing for you. So an elective that's also applying to a minor, or if a student's in the honors program, an elective that applies to a minor and it is an honors course. And so that also can make things a little bit complicated. So we try to keep in touch with the student, and then if they're, the course either isn't offered or it's offered but they can't get into it, to try to help them figure out, okay, is it a must do for the next semester, or can they revisit that for a subsequent term? I hope that's helpful.
I wanted to know a little bit more about the internship program here, like how does a student figure out how to navigate that?
Yeah, so that would be the Career Development Center. They work most closely with students in that regard. I believe they have a session at 11
Yes.
in this room. Yeah, okay, good.
Answer much more questions there.
Yes.
Yeah.
What I will say though, is in addition to kind of learning about internship opportunities and coaching students through the application process, they offer a series of career design seminars that we encourage students to take. So for first year students, there's a CDI 101 that all first year students should take in the spring. There's a version for sophomores who maybe are still a little bit undecided about their major. And then there's a version for juniors who are probably looking for internships. And what that does is essentially takes things that would be covered in separate workshops and offers it in a structured format. We have Paul from the Career Development Center. Paul, I don't know if you have anything you want to add just in context of the question.
Yeah.
It's like an annual tradition I have with you now.
Guest appearance.
So I would echo everything that Val just mentioned. The CDIs, the career design introductory courses or intensive courses are really a good way to go. For a first year student, they'll be eligible to take that in the spring. And then they can, in their second year, they can take it the fall semester. Then we have asynchronous options that are tailored to the majors. So our marketing students, so that population can watch our videos and get pretty much 24/7 access to resources through that asynchronous option. And we, again, they're tailored to the majors. So the marketing kids aren't going to hear about the accounting major information and vice versa. In terms of how the internships work, the CDI, those CDI classes, we really kind of set the foundation for how they can find roles, how they can use resources, and basically we started with like the toolkit, so the resume, the cover letter, LinkedIn, informational meetings, Gallup strengths. And once they kind of have that foundation, it's really kind of up to them how they want to engage with our office. And then from that point, we'll help them with any path that they want to pursue. Hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you. Oh, the sessions at noon, the Career Development Center sessions at noon. Yeah.
The CDI class or sometimes, is that only offered in the fall?
Yes.
Okay, it's not one of those.
What other questions that might be helpful to cover?
If you're joining us virtually, you can use the chat feature to ask any questions that you may have.
Sure.
I do have a fairly self-advocating child. I am curious. She has had to take many steps to get into to pursue the advising relationship. Is that sort of the expectation of students, or is there a way that advisors are reaching out to students also, or is it really in the student's hands to kind of keep pulling for that?
Yeah, so at the beginning of the year, we did all send basically introduction emails to our cohorts, reminding them of how to get in contact with us, giving them a little bit of information of who we are so they can start to get to know us that way. And then of course, reminding them of here's how to make an appointment, here's drop-ins, here's the resources that we covered earlier. In terms of us reaching out to students, we really do that. Like I mentioned earlier, it's progress report season right now. So when a progress report that's a concern comes in, we're reaching out to the student to provide them additional resources or maybe ask them to come in for a meeting so that we can get a better understanding of what's happening. We would also do that if we got other notification from a faculty or maybe a campus partner had met with the student and they shared their concern about a class, we would then reach out at that point. Besides that, we are not doing regular check-ins and reach out with students. So that's where it is kind of up to them to make that appointment or send us that email if they have a quick question. I have had a couple of students who have made an appointment with me just because they want to say hi and get to know me. And those are the ones that I'm like, yes, I love this. So encourage your students to do that. And again, even if it's just an email, just to introduce themselves, just so they can start building that relationship with us. We won't turn a student away, right? So if they want to have a meeting, like Val said, we do have the appointments online, and then we do try to squeeze students in where we can. But yes, it is more so up to the student to let us know kind of what support they need. Or if they're like, I just don't even know what an advisor does. I just had a meeting the other day with a student who was like, I don't actually know what you are. They were like, are you like a guidance counselor from high school? And I was like, oh, good question. Here we go. So they can even just reach out and make an appointment just to get a better understanding of what we do. And then maybe that can help the student figure out, okay, how do I want to build this relationship with my advisor?
And that's part of the goal of the assigned advisor model, which we just implemented probably about 3 years ago, so that hopefully it's a more welcoming, easier point of entry for students to reach out and connect with somebody, and to know that that's their resource, that's their partner from an academic perspective throughout their time. And so my hope is that sometimes even just seeing that name in their Workday portal opens up the door, and maybe the comfort level for them to reach out via email is most likely the first point of contact, or connecting with us in drop-ins to start the conversation, however it might be helpful for the student.
Yes.
Advisor to student ratio.
Hi. We each have, what is it, probably like
Seven, yeah.
we each have about 700 advisees, which is high. But I think, that's one of the reasons why when you see things like the newsletter, the emails that we send out, the programs that we do, it becomes way, because there is a fair amount of information that we provide that is consistent regardless of student circumstance. There are many elements that vary based on individual circumstance, but some of those large scale communications or programs and events that we do are intended to disperse information that might be helpful to the majority of our students. I think part of the challenge is that I hear all the time from our students that they get bombarded with emails, and trying to sort through the ones that are important and helpful versus can be disregarded can be tricky. But we typically like to remind them that if they get an email from our office, which is academic services, the registrar's office, if it's got a formal sounding title, to keep an eye on it, because it's probably either important information or helpful information that they want to tune into.
Yes.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It was very helpful. 2 questions. How is it different for honors program? Is it any different? What do we need to know? And second question, for long-term plan, what do you expect to have it? Is it freshman year, is it sophomore? Where's a good draft comes out for it? Just curious. Thank you.
Yeah. So for honors, honor students do have some requirements. They do have some classes that they have to take at an honors level. We, of course, can help walk them through those honors requirements, but we also most often refer them back to the honors program. So Professor Rubio and then Jordan are the staff that work in the honors program. And so they also are really great at sitting down with students and walking through what the honors requirements are and how those might change based on students coming in with previous credit or things like that. In terms of long range planning, we will not do those with first year students in their first semester. Their first year should really be about working on their foundational and like core classes and really trying to figure out what they want to do during their time here. We won't start long range planning until like the end of spring semester for first year students, or mostly sophomore year, as students won't really begin their major until spring of sophomore year or even junior year. So it gives them a little bit more time to finalize some details. Long range planning is also more helpful when a student knows kind of what major, what minor. If they're thinking about studying abroad, we like to plan for that too. So sometimes it's easier for the student to take a little bit longer to finalize those things so that we can accurately make a plan versus making a plan and then a month later coming back and redoing the plan based on a decision changing.
And in particular for first semester, first year students, what we want is for them to have completed at least one full semester to kind of get a feel for the ebb and flow. You know, for the example, the month of October tends to be a common month for midterm exams. And they can either be like scattered throughout the month, they might be consolidated into a particular week. And so having that at least one full semester completed enables the student to, number one, have a sense of how they find a Bentley semester. And secondly, to use that insight to help inform the plan that we're creating, because we can develop something that works on paper, that meets prereqs, that has all of the requirements. We have some general advising guidelines in terms of, you know, if a student has like 4 business courses in a semester, that might start to feel a little bit rigorous. But having the student input in terms of what they find to be manageable, what else they may have going on in terms of commitments outside of the classroom, adds more value to that plan. And so that's why doing it in spring of first year tends to be really helpful. And the other piece, which I'm not quite sure if Mel, if you've mentioned it, my apologies. Major declaration is not required until sophomore year, the very start of the spring semester of sophomore year. Some students will declare their major earlier, and that's fine. But that's one of the reasons why having that first year to really explore and just kind of look into anything that looks interesting and start narrowing down options can be really helpful. Because I don't know what percentage of our students change their major or maybe end up declaring a major that's different than what they thought when they first enrolled, but it's probably pretty high just as they start to experience courses and identify opportunities that look interesting to them. And so having the time and the freedom to do that while also taking introductory courses in a variety of disciplines helps to, I think, make their major decision feel like a better fit for them and their goals.
I have a few questions online. The first is the international component a requirement for graduation? I believe in talking about like study abroad and things.
Oh, yes. Study abroad is not a general requirement. There may be some programs that require a global experience, which typically a study abroad experience meets that. There are various different experiences when it comes to study abroad. So I think they, right after this at 10, have a presentation. So I would hang out for that. But students can do summer study abroad programs, semester abroad programs, or a faculty-led program, which is they take a course during a semester and then they go abroad for about 10 to 14 days on a trip, but it's not required for all students.
And as a transfer student, if a student is short a few classes, what's the best way to make up those classes?
Yeah, so transfer students, yes, based on how many credits they bring in, might be quote unquote behind in terms of what year they would like to be. So they should really meet with their advisors so that we can help them do a long range plan. Typically, if a student wants to take a few classes to quote unquote get caught up, we can look at winter or summer courses for them, or students who have a certain GPA could also look into taking 6 classes in a semester. So some students would prefer to also do that to make up the classes they are behind in.
And then the last question, if a student has a potential to double major, but maybe would need to take some additional coursework or go in an avenue of going to like a graduate program, is there any thoughts of like direction or why potentially to go either as a double major versus like a single major with a graduate degree?
I think we'd have to learn more about what the students' goals are and which path might work out better for them. We also share an office space with graduate advising. So in a conversation like that, it might be that they have an initial discussion with us and then connect with a grad advisor to gather information about graduate program options, and then use that information to help reach a conclusion that kind of balances everything, in the best manner possible.
Can I ask one more? And then what resources are available to ensure students meet qualifications for state CPA exams?
There is a CPA email. I'm pretty sure it is cpa@bentley.edu. Students can certainly have a general conversation with us. We have some general understanding of what the students need for that, but we always refer them to the CPA email so that the professionals and staff here who know that process in more detail than we do can better support them through that.
And that would also be another example of, are they taking some extra courses as an undergrad, or are they pursuing graduate studies to meet the CPA requirements? That tends to be a common scenario. I think we had a question over there.
Thanks. You said when you talked about building relationships with professors, for looking for internships or jobs, are they working in, my daughter's a marketing major, are they working in conjunction with Paul, or is that, should we look at that as a completely separate avenue for information?
That, by that, it's more from like, students can use their faculty and faculty as more mentors. So not necessarily the professors helping them gain internships, but being able to kind of talk through maybe what the faculty members' experience has been like and what maybe they suggest for a student based on knowing that student and knowing maybe their career goals. So it is two separate entities, not like in tangent together.
Just add one thing?
Yeah.
We do have career communities for their interest areas. So everyone in our office does work specifically with different faculty. So everything that Mel said is exactly right, but there are times that we do programs with them. In fact, we encourage them to talk to their faculty, especially on the networking front, because we're not connected to everybody in the industry. They are, so that's the whole sense of the career community piece, because it's a student, it's our office, and it's the faculty. But that really does vary department to department. So, but that's the goal.
Yes.
To be eligible to take extra classes, like you said, student takes 6 classes, you have to have certain requirements, certain GPA.
Yes. So for most students, it would be a 2.7 Bentley GPA. And then once they reach senior status, it would be a 2.0. The one thing I would throw out is, it sounds simple in theory, but the navigation of the 6 courses in one semester, particularly depending upon the combination of those 6 courses, can be really tricky. So that's a conversation that we often have with students, that let's be careful about which semester you're looking to do the extra course. Does it feel manageable given that particular combination? Yes.
I have a question regarding, my student came in with quite a few credits, college credits, and how does it tailor for those students who have already sort of advanced scheduling? How is it tailored in academic filing to allow them to maybe advance to the graduation a little faster? Is it like any special approach that you guys use, or?
Well, I think it's a combination of the conversation with the student, probably a long-range plan to see, okay, given what they brought in for credit, are they meeting prerequisites to move along to subsequent courses? Because for every course that a student brings in advanced standing credit or prior transfer credit, that's, as long as it applies to degree requirements, that's one less course that they need to take at Bentley. But the question then becomes, what types of courses are those? So what do they have left to complete at Bentley? And how do we navigate that, both in terms of meeting prereqs and to help ensure that the workload feels okay in a given semester? But certainly if we are with students who bring in like 15 credits, at the point of enrollment, they might be looking at trying to complete their studies a semester early. And then what does that look like, again, long range plan wise? Sometimes if it's perhaps a little bit less than that, students will, instead of taking 5 courses per semester, which is the typical course load, they might have some semesters towards the end, maybe senior year, they're doing 4 classes each term instead of the full 5. And again, this is just a conversation that we have with students to identify what's their timeline, what are the academic goals that they have in terms of what they want to study, and now, okay, what does that look like? And then revisiting that, because sometimes plans change along the way.
If they're interested in studying abroad, is there an opportunity for them to continue their honors work while they're studying abroad so they can stay on target with their?
So they wouldn't do honors courses abroad. So this, I feel like a lot of our answers today just boil down to like long range planning when students are doing a lot of things. So what they would need to do is develop a plan that is effectively completing all of the honors requirements before they go abroad and when they get back. and making sure that that feels comfortable for them. What I will say is that the honors program requirements tend to fall mostly in the first and second year, so that can oftentimes make it helpful when they hit junior year. But with careful planning, I have not run into a lot of honor students where it's difficult for them to complete the requirements. The only exception where I think it gets really tricky is we have a partnership with the London School of Economics, and that is not available as a semester study abroad. It's a full year program. And so most students that are doing that junior year. And so that, as you can imagine, makes it a little bit trickier to figure out, okay, what are they doing there, especially if they're in the honors program, it kind of, again, moves before and after. But they get it done.
So that is all the time that we have today. Val and myself might hang out just for a minute down here. So if there are urgent questions, feel free to come and ask us. If not, please direct your student to our office, whether it is email, drop-ins, or scheduling an appointment. We are here to support and help them during their time. So thank you all.
I was just going to also add, we will send out an email after this weekend, and it'll have our alumni office information as well. So if you have additional questions that you want us to help ask for you, we can help to facilitate that. So if you walk away and you have other questions, we can help with that. Our email is alumni@bentley.edu, but like I said, we'll send out an email afterwards after this whole weekend. And then just as a gentle reminder, since people were asking, in this same room at 10 is the study abroad session. So if you want to stay for that, and then at noon in this room is a session about the CEO 101, becoming the CEO of your life. And so that's with our career center. So I hope you join us. Thank you.